Well, Forrest, 4 games in, roughly 5% of the season done to this point. Red Wings only 2 points to show for it so far.
5% of the way through the season. It feels like a lot longer than that with some of the hockey we've been forced to watch here. But it luckily, as you mentioned, it's only 5%, and there's a long way to go. And we're gonna get into it tonight.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Hockey Town Hangout.
Brings it in, scores! Oh, his first NHL goal is a beauty!
The sickest Detroit Red Wings podcast. It's gonna be sick.
So, just finished a back-to-back with the New York Rangers. We were talking before the show. A legitimate Stanley Cup contending team, one of the best teams in the NHL. 2 losses, 0 points, aggregate score of 9-2. What were your takeaways from those 2 games with the Rangers?
Gosh, my takeaways are that we are so far away and we got absolutely outclassed. I mean, I would say that my expectations going into the season were, best case scenario, you split. Not expecting to get 2 against them. Best case scenario, you split. Maybe you get a point. But to just absolutely get worked for, 120 minutes over 2 games. I mean, they had some stretches where there was improved play, but just disappointed overall. And I think it shows, unfortunately, that we still have a little ways to go here in the rebuild. Matt, your thoughts?
It was funny because, the game started out with power play action and a lot of pretty good chances. DeBrincat misses a wide open net. That can't happen. But I remember early in the game, the 5-on-3 expires and we were out shooting them like 7-0, something like that. And I'm like, their first one's going in. And lo and behold, that's what happens. Just like really soft defensive play on the first goal. Mata tries to go glassing out and it's a kind of half-assed and then retreats back to the middle. Kind of loses track of where he is, his stick's in the wrong position, and then it's an easy cross-ice pass to Panarin, who had the hat trick tonight. But really the key takeaway for me is how far away our special teams look right now. Our penalty kill was 25%. We were able to finally score a 5-on-4 power play goal like towards the end of the game when it didn't even matter and it was out of reach. So our power play percentage right now has to be at the bottom, near the bottom of the league. The penalty kill probably not far behind. How do you get that fixed? What do you got to do to figure that out?
Well, usually you have, some high-end picks and some superstars that you can throw out there to just outskill people. Most of the top power plays in the league include the best players in the league. Unfortunately, our wings are improved, but they just don't have that upper echelon talent right now. I mean, Dylan Larkin and Lucas Raymond are really nothing to scoff at, but they're not on the level of a Artemi Panarin or a Chris Kreider, dare I even say, a very important glue guy. So I believe the saying is you want to be at like 100% for your special teams, 80% for power play or penalty kill, and then 20% for the power play. Oh my gosh, we would be lucky to be at 50% right now. I know you mentioned 25% for the penalty kill. It would be lucky to be at 50%. And unfortunately, it's one of those things we just have to look forwards. Like, we do not have the high-end skill. Like, yes, we have players of skill, Kane, Larkin, Raymond, but they're not quite at the level that most people have to be in order to drive a power play. Because they've been doing the same stuff for years, right? The little throwback pass that Zibanejad, I saw almost steal a couple times tonight just because it's so telegraphed. But yeah, we're in a rough spot, unfortunately.
So I think for me, like, since really the rebuild started, our power play has been bad. And it's really tough to win in the league when you have a very mediocre or terrible power play. And last year we finally had a good one. And it bothers me that, like, I think the 2 of the biggest factors that aren't here anymore was Gostisbehere quarterbacking the first unit, and then Perron, love him or hate him, he was really good and effective at retrieving those pucks in the corners or down low or whatever. And we saw that pay off a few times on different clutch power play goals down the stretch. Obviously, Gostisbehere with the jump, Perron fetching his pucks like he does. But I think Perron the role he played there is kind of replaceable. You can teach someone else to do that. That's not that big of a deal. But finding a power play quarterback that works is not an easy task. You're already asking Mo Sider to move heaven and earth to play on your blue line. So having him be your first power play quarterback, fine, I'm cool with that. But again, it's just one more high pressure situation you're asking of the kid. And I don't know. Gostisbehere wanted too much money, too much term, whatever. We were giving out money in term to people like Andrew Kopp and Ben Sherratt, so that's a little perplexing. So I don't know. I wish maybe more of an effort would have been made to try and retain Gostisbehere just because of the power play unit. And the people that disagree with me, they're going to be like, he was minus 16. He's bad defensively. Well, look at Erik Gustafsson. Erik Gustafsson took 2 soft, slow motion, high sticking penalties tonight. That guy, you can't control your stick at the NHL. I mean, if it was me, I'd scratch him again the next game. Your first game you played so bad, you get scratched, and then you get back into the lineup and you draw 2 penalties. I think they scored on 1, maybe both. I mean, the guy, if you're putting that guy in there and you're saying that's Shane Gostisbehere's replacement, it does not look good so far.
I do think that they scored on both of the power plays of Gustafsson, unfortunately, and yeah, we are leaps and bounds better than where we were when we started, but we're still a little ways away from joining. Yes, last year we kind of tasted a little bit of playoffs, a little bit of playoff chase, and yes, amazing for the young kids to get a taste. Like we saw Raymond just pop off, and good did come from that. But everybody talked about the shooting percentage coming into the year, how there was going to be regression. They were 3rd, I believe, in the NHL. We're seeing that shooting percentage go the opposite direction. I mean, you mentioned DeBrincat missing the net early in the massive Wings flurry. And it's just unfortunate because you see DeBrincat miss, and then you see how beautifully the Rangers move the puck on the other side, and they just make it look so easy. It leaves me in an envious position. We got a taste of all this stuff, a power play that's efficient, defense that can decently hold up, and goaltending that was streaky. And now it seems like we're not standing on any of those pillars right now. Hey, Matt, I think you're muted.
I apologize for that. Retake, Shane, clip that out. But hey, so just a quick glance at the special teams for the year, 9.1%, which is tied for 27th in the league, and the penalty kills at 80%, which is tied for 16th. So your power play is at the bottom of the league, and your penalty kills at the middle. That's definitely not a recipe for success, and they got to figure that out. Obviously, another key issue, roster concern, going into the year, and seems to be just as confusing now, 4 games in. What's going on in the crease? No one seems to know what's going on in the crease. Cam Talbot comes out, plays great, and then whatever happened tonight, the power plays and all that stuff wasn't getting the job done. He got pulled for Alex Lyon. I mean, is this going to have to be something that Red Wings fans are getting used to?
I think it might be. I really think it might be. I do want to go back for a second because, I know we've been talking really negatively so far on this podcast, and I do want to harp on one positive that I saw. I really think that the power play goal at the end of the game was massive for the team's confidence, and in a really bad game overall, I think that's a single positive that we can kind of take with us going forwards. But to your question about roster construction, I think every decision needs to be questioned at this point. Steve Yzerman became Steve Yzerman GM, like the GM, because of trades that he made. He got value for Ben Bishop. He got a first rounder for Ben Bishop. He picked guys that were, in later rounds that were absolute gems. Kucherov's a second rounder, Braden Point's a third rounder, and those are guys that are absolute studs. Unfortunately, we haven't seen any of that here. Like, let's just be real. I love Steve Yzerman. Steve Yzerman is my hero, but none of that has happened here. And we're in season 7. And I think that's just where the frustration from me comes, because we know he's not going to get fired, because we all love him, and rightfully so. But as a GM, I feel like the decisions need to be questioned a little bit more because I think that they needed to work around the margins more to improve this team because essentially we're kind of running it back and trying to slot people into roles that were played last year. And the team is not as skilled as they were last year. They don't have the different array of skill sets that mesh. Like we don't have a Perron that can go down and win a battle. I mean, we really don't. We would love for Michael Rasmussen to do that, but we don't have that. And it's a little frustrating that we don't have a Marco Casper up here. I want to talk about that again, just because he looked like the best player on the entire team in training in the preseason. There's no reason that he shouldn't have been on this lineup, and there's no reason you can't tell me he's not one of the 5-6 best players that would be on the lineup right now.
Yeah, I mean that Casper performance in the preseason is quite glaring at this current point in time after watching a few games of the regular season so far. But going back to your point, talking about guys who can't really win battles, and watching Joe Veleno is so frustrating. It seems like he's really soft on pucks. Jonathan Berggren, I'm not super impressed with. I realize everyone is rooting for him and thinks he's going to provide that depth offense and everything. He kind of looks invisible most of the time to me. I'm not going to lie. And let's just be honest, that's a Ken Holland and Tyler Wright pick. Not many of those worked out. So just being honest there, I like Christian Fischer's tenacity, forecheck, puck retrieval kind of game, but he's not playing a ton, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But, like Rasmussen and Kopp and Comfer, and Tarasenko and Kane aren't going to go win any corner battles for crying out loud. So it's just where is that edge going to come from? I have a concern about that because it's just like when they look disengaged, like there were points in the game tonight where they just looked lazy and disengaged. And that's the most frustrating part for me because you have all these veterans in the lineup and you have some kids who played well in the preseason down in Grand Rapids. And it doesn't make any sense that your logic is, well, we want them playing meaningful games and meaningful minutes. Well, if you get them here and they help us be more competitive at the NHL level, aren't those meaningful minutes if they're helping you win the game at the NHL level? Like, I understand the logic. You want them to play first line. You don't want them interrupted, whatever. Then just call them up and commit to leaving them there for 10, 12, 15 games, whatever it is, and reevaluate. And if he isn't hacking it, then send him back down. Like, it really, in the grand scheme of things, doing it this early, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And I would really like it too, because it would kind of bump the centers down. Because if you had Casper on your second line center, then you could slot Comfer and Kopp both down, Veleno out of the lineup. And, the fourth line center, to me, you don't want to be paying your fourth line center 5.1 or whatever it is Kopp's making. But again, that's an indictment on the management and the pro scouting and the people that put the pen to paper and drew that contract up and offered it to him. So just, to me, it's frustrating because it seems like we really kind of went chips in the middle of the table a little bit with that summer where we signed, Kopp, Sherratt, Perron 2 or 3 years ago, the year of the Bedard draft, right? We decided to go in and not be bad for one more year to take a shot at that, but that's a different discussion for a different day. A lot of veterans, lazy and disengaged for portions. We're 4 games in and we're already seeing lazy and disengaged from veterans, UFA veterans signed, and that kind of stuff has a trickle-down effect.
It does. And, we've been critical of Perron on this podcast. He did play an important role on the power play. We got to give him credit for that. But to your point about laziness, go tougher into the corners, throw around the body more. Michael Rasmussen is 6'6". He doesn't hit anybody. I like Fischer because he's someone that isn't afraid to throw around the body a little bit. Like, if you're not going to contribute on the score sheet, do something else a different way. And my other gripe is like the first goal they scored tonight was Rasmussen saw that he was going back to be the third or the first forward, and he saw that there was 2 defensemen with two Rangers, and he peeled back and kept the puck in, which led to a scrum, got the puck out, and we scored from it. And I think that was notable to me because I don't think our structure works. Like, why is Rasmussen going back to have 3 guys back he made the right decision to jump up into the play, but we need more of these guys to ad lib. The structure that we have is not working with the players that we have. All great coaches set their players up for success and put them in a position to succeed. I I really can't say that we're seeing that. And again, 5% of the way into the season, I was talking about the coach last season, but I just think that this team has to hear a new voice. Like at a certain point, last year I think was their high water mark with Lalonde. Everything went their way. They had some hot goaltending, like all of the best case scenarios hit. We hit the lottery on every single scenario last season, and we still didn't even make the playoffs. If everything goes the opposite direction this season, are we going to be in the 70s in points? Are we going to be battling for, one of these high lottery picks? I know it's early. Don't want to sound too much of the alarm, but it doesn't look good. I'm thankful that we're playing Nashville again and we beat them 3-0. Granted, it was an amazing performance by Talbot, but is it going to take an amazing goaltending performance in order to win a game for these Red Wings? Because that's what it's kind of looking like it's going to take these days.
And talking about the shooting percentage regression happening, it seems like that's happening very early in the season. I know they flashed a graphic in kind of like the end of the first period, maybe, or the start of the second, that the Red Wings had 11 missed shots. I'd love to know what they finished the game with. It had to have been in the 20s. It seems like they are missing the net a lot. DeBrincat, Tarasenko, the defenseman, the point shots. It seems like they would have 10, 12 more shots a game if we were just hitting the net like even 20, 30% more of the time. So obviously, anytime you're missing wide open nets, it's not, going to end well typically. But I do, want to comment on the structure thing that you said. When you as a coach put such an emphasis on structure and you need to play this type of way and you need to do this and X, Y, and Z, and those are non-negotiables, you put the players in a box, and that doesn't necessarily work with every player. Trying to put Patrick Kane in like a defensive first-minded box, is that like the smartest thing to do? And I don't know if that's what they're trying to do, but my point is, the more emphasis on structure, the less emphasis on creativity and kind of like philosophies instead of structure, I guess, is the way I want to say it. And the idea, we're not going to have the same shooting percentage. We're probably going to score less. So we want to be better on the defensive side of the puck. Well, on the defensive side of the puck, we're kind of butt right now, like, just to put it respectfully. And, 5v, if we're not scoring on the power play, then your 5v5 numbers have to be great. And they tonight maybe were, because every goal that New York had was seemingly on the power play. But I don't know how that's sustainable when you're trying to put the emphasis all on defense when your offense scored at the highest clip it's scored at in a while. So just kind of like that culture shock maybe. And again, we're not there. We don't know all the specific X's and O's and what they want to do. We'll catch on to that as the season goes on and we watch more games. But I am a little concerned about the style of play. Because again, like it's very early, but just catching them already kind of lazy and disengaged at times. And again, maybe you can chalk it up to having to play a legitimate Stanley Cup contending team, but the schedule doesn't get any easier. If you go down the line and look at the schedule until mid-November, Thanksgiving, if we don't figure it out, we might have 6-7 wins at that time. And so I just think it's really important to maybe, go back to last year, think of some things that were working, and maybe, the personnel might be a little bit different, but, we have to have that depth scoring. And if you're telling your bottom 6 or your bottom 9 that you want them to focus on defense first all the time and let the first line take care of the offense, well, I don't know if that's a great recipe for success either. So I'm kind of in this gray area right now where I'm trying to figure out what the strategy is. Is the strategy to play good defense and win the special teams battle and just kind of be okay 5-on-5? Because if that's the strategy, that's not working so far. You're not going to execute that strategy with a power play ranked 27 out of 32. So just a lot of questions. And again, it's early. There's a ton of runway left. It's not like I'm over here smashing the panic button by any means. But definitely some real concerns.
Yeah, there needs to be some kind of a happy medium. You mentioned structure, and that is what they want. They want defensively responsible guys first. That's why they forced a lot of players to stay down over time. But at a certain point, you mentioned that you kill their creativity, and that is the talent that we're talking about. The creativity. You need that stuff. You need it from your most talented players, or else you really don't have a shot. You mentioned it. I mean, it's early. It's early. There's no reason to push the panic button just yet. But things to continue monitoring here throughout the beginning start of this season. And I go back to my point about coaches putting their players in a position to succeed. We don't even know what their plan is, and it really seems like they don't even have a plan for this team. Like, what are we going to be good at, and what are we going to compromise on? They're just like, oh, we're going to be decent at everything, and it kind of shows because they're not really good at anything right now. We're struggling in all facets.
So next 10 games takes us to November 9th. So a little less than a month from now. At Nashville, at Islanders, home New Jersey, at Buffalo, home Edmonton, home Winnipeg, home Buffalo, at Chicago, at Toronto, and at the New York Rangers. I mean, you don't figure it out. That's maybe what, 2 or 3 wins?
And then it was like one easy stretch there, Chicago, and I can't remember the second team, but like all the others, I'm pretty sure you listed are playoff teams.
Yeah,
things can go sideways pretty quickly here.
And that was really the big concern that I had kind of at the beginning of the year, because looking at the schedule and knowing the Red Wings like I know the Red Wings, just kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies a little bit, I guess. And so we really got to find a way to get the special teams in order, because even if you can be an average team 5-on-5, but you have a top half of the league penalty kill and power play, then you can maybe, drag it across the finish line, so to speak. But the power play has to get corrected. I don't know if it's personnel or what, but I really don't know if Eric Gustafsson is the solution as your power play 1 quarterback, at least from what I've seen so far. And even there's the one clip that drove me nuts from the first period in the 5-on-3. Puck gets bumped back to him up at the top. He's got a full runway from like the top of the circle down to the slot. And I think it's Zibanejad over there to his right, and he's covering someone on the flank, maybe Kane or Raymond or whoever it was. Dumps it over to him. Easy turnover, and it was led to like a 2-on-2 rush the other way on a 5-on-3, for crying out loud. So it's just like that types of heads up stuff. And, maybe the guy's nervous, gripping the stick, new location, got scratched once already. I don't know what it is. But if it was me and it's a 5-on-3 power play and I've got runway in front of me, I'm skating that sucker in, trying to find someone backdoor if I can. If not, then just let it go. Kid's trying to do too much. It's really brutal for him so far. And I'll be interested to see if he even plays on Saturday against Nashville.
I mean, with today's performance, I'd also be quite surprised if he played. But then again, I did like Johansson, and I did see that the underlying metrics for Johansson, in a very small sample size, granted, are positive. I think that's something you go to right away, and you see if it's something that is actually legit. I mean, Johansson, I believe, is 23, 24. Okay, Gustafsson, let's be honest, he's not cutting it. Get Johansson in there, and I'm not saying give him power play 1 time. Mo can do that, but they need to change some things around. I think Gustafsson is just being told to pass the puck to the guys on on either flank. That's what I think. I think they told him he's just got to be a passer up there, because there's no reason that he's not going to step that up and get a better angle and get closer. I mean, get a higher percentage shot. The further you are away from the net, the harder it is to score, right? Something that's instilled in you from an early age. So walk the puck up and shoot it. 5-on-3, man.
Yeah, I mean, you got to bury those 5-on-3s. And it was only for like 40.
Unacceptable.
Only for like 40, 45 seconds, but still, that's plenty of time to generate a couple high quality chances. One positive thing, I did notice some nice little subtle calm plays from Justin Hall again tonight. I think he's kind of settling in a little bit to his role, and I don't think he's trying to do too much. And he knows that the bar's kind of low. There's not super high expectations for him, just simple and effective. And I think he's still finding ways to get that done, which is good to see, I suppose.
He's at his best when he keeps it simple. He was whipping boy in Toronto, and when he keeps it simple like this, he's an effective player. When he tries to do too much, that's when he makes mistakes. Excuse me. And honestly, that's kind of the MO of our defense outside of like Mo and Edmondson. Like, just don't make the critical mistake.
How long before you think we see 53 and 77 as the power play quarterbacks? That might be something I try and do next.
I say you try everything, man. Take the spaghetti, chuck it against the fridge, and see what sticks.
And I've kind of liked how he's kind of gotten up into a few little plays. It seems like his hands are okay. He has pretty decent vision. Like he still looks like a gazelle at times out there. I mean, he's a big SOB, but he's going to figure that out. And I don't know, throw him at the top of the second unit, see what he can do. I think that's kind of where I would turn to next. I mean, I'm assuming since that's my idea, they're probably going to go back to Sherratt and Sider, but I would say, I mean, what's the worst that could happen at this point? You're already 8th in the Atlantic and the season just started. So that might be where I turn to next. So kind of the final thought here at this point, we've seen a small sample size of the roster as assembled. We've seen kind of a small sample size of the on ice product and how they're playing. At this point in time, do you have a bigger gripe with how the team is being managed or how the team is being coached?
Wow, that's actually a really good question.
Big J journalism.
Yeah, goodness. I mean, you're asking a lot tougher questions than a lot of other people out there these days. So I applaud you, my friend. If I had to say one, gosh, I'm biased though because I love Steve Yzerman. I mean,
Sure.
and that's the hard part, right? I have to go with the coaching. I have to go with the coaching, and yeah, I think that's such a tough question just because of how much love there is for Steve Yzerman in this town. I mean, hockey town hero.
So I'll play devil's advocate and I'll say the management, because I mean, the coach can only put together the puzzle with the pieces that you give him, right? I don't think he's involved in, who do you want me to sign, but maybe I'm wrong. But we have just been extremely lackluster and have had very poor luck in the let's bring in a UFA and see what they can do here type of thing. It's worked out few and far between over the last 10 years or so. Not like a plethora of quality UFAs have wanted to come to Detroit over the last 10 years by any means. But it's really bugging me with the power play thing, especially with how bad the power play has been to start. You finally had a top 10 power play last year, and you let the quarterback walk over like a year or two or $1 million, $1.5 million. So that really bothers me. And again, just JT Compher and Andrew Kopp. I think JT Compher and Andrew Kopp are kind of the same player, but JT Compher has, maybe 25, 30% more offensive upside. He'll get you probably 18 to 22 goals somewhere in there, or Kopp will probably only get you like 15-ish, maybe. I don't know. But a lot of the forwards in the bottom six, or all of them really, are kind of the same archetype where they just kind of are invisible for long periods of time. And then we'll maybe put together 1, 2, maybe 3 if we're lucky games in a row where they're like, okay, now they got some jam. Now they're going. And, the New York Rangers, great team. Like I've always had a lot of respect for the Rangers just because they seem to, when they do go through these rebuilds, maybe they get a little lottery luck, but their pro scouting department is so good. Like they hit on so many guys, like Jonathan Quick coming in to be the backup goaltender. He's been money. Vinny Trocheck, sign him to be your second line center. He's been money. Did they trade for Trouba or did they sign him? I'm not sure, but either way, that's a pro scout acquisition. He's your captain and someone that our team even tried to acquire. So
They traded for Andrew Kopp and then didn't re-sign him.
Right. Yeah. So, it's stuff like that that's, and I don't even want to say like I'm annoyed or mad about it, but I feel like a lot of Red Wings fans just like we're tired of it, man. Like we see how the Lions turned it around pretty quickly when Sheila and Brad and Dan took over, and we just saw the Tigers run after they called up the kids and turned them loose and said, no pressure, do your thing. And they turned it into maybe the greatest statistical miracle in the history of Detroit sports. And the Red Wings are still towards the bottom. We're in year 8 now. We're the only team that's missed the playoffs longer than us is the Buffalo Sabres. That's not a company that I want to be in. So I just I hope management has a plan. And if they don't, then I hope the coaching staff can find a way to tweak some things and get what we got going. Because it's not like we have a bunch of bad players. Dylan Larkin's really good. Alex DeBrincat is streaky, but when he's on, he's on. Lucas Raymond just had his best year. We're still waiting for Patrick Kane to break the door down. So it was nice to see Mo Sider bury one tonight. Comfort's got a couple. So we just not enough guys are going at the start of the year. Whose fault that is, I don't know. But the good news is there's plenty of time to figure it out. But if you don't figure it out in short order, it can snowball pretty quickly, which is the thing that's a little bit terrifying.
Going back to the power play, I think that Mo needs to be power play 1 and Edvinsson power play 2. I think you make a great point on that. We'll go back to the beginning of this show tonight. What's the thing that every great power play has? High-end talent. What do? You stack your first power play with all the most talented guys on your team and get them out there and see what they can do. And Edvinsson has been compared quite a bit to Victor Hedman. Also, granted, not an apples-to-apples conversation, but someone that has the ability to step up into the play. He's shown shades of it. Get him the power play time and see if he can do it. We've seen flashes. Let's see if he can do it a little bit more and not work within the confines of our structure. Definitely agree with your point on things can slip away quick. Best part is we're going to find out as we go through the season, gang. I appreciate everybody joining here tonight. And let's go Red Wings, baby. Only up from here.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Hockey Town Hangout on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.